Hey guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be doing my September reading wrap-up, showing y'all all of the books that I have completed so far in the month of September, and if I had to recommend them with a yes, no, or a maybe. Let's get into it. I am definitely in a bit of a reading slump right now because I read this big, thick nonfiction book that didn't do a whole lot for me. And before that, I read a very descriptive but short book, but it just took me a while to get through. I cannot wait to get through the tome that I'm currently reading to then get to the more commercial books, hoping that they will be more fast-paced. With a month focused on thrillers, you would think that, you know, I'd be getting through them quite quickly, but that has not been the case. The first book that I have to talk about was my nonfiction pick of the month, and that is Kidnap, the story of the Lindbergh case by George Waller. And no, I would not recommend this book. Well, let's go into why that is. I do want to first and foremost say that true crime is not my usual genre. I'm not a true crime girly, but I will dabble in every genre. If somebody gives me a book, I'm going to read it. This book was a gift, and as I said, true crime usually isn't what I read. If you like true crime, this might work for you, but since I'm not a huge true crime person, it didn't really work for me. Now, the writing style, it started out great. It was very intriguing. It's narrative nonfiction at the start. You're very much immersed into this story, and it reads like a game of Clue, like a noir almost. Like, I can see Vince Scully doing the audiobook. That is so random, I know, but that's like the voice that I was imagining when reading this, because it just feels so like old-timey because it was published in the early 1960s. You have that great pacing and everything for that first part of the book that is about the crime and the trying to find who was the, you know, perpetrator of the crime. Then we get into the longest part of the book, trial and the appeal. And this, okay, a lot of legal stuff, courtroom stuff goes right over my head. Again, it's something I'm not a major fan of. So this book had a lot of things pointing towards that I'm not going to like it. With it being 500 pages or almost 600 pages, it didn't feel that slow of a pace. But okay, back to what I was saying with the courtroom, with the trial section, some of those chapters did go on to 30 pages in length, and it was just so much, and the writing style just changed at this point where it's a lot of dialogue. Now, I'm assuming that like the courtroom stuff, like it, you know, was recorded. I'm going to say written down rather than audible, so just using that to put into the book, I don't need to read all of that. And it was just a lot of dialogue, and I would get lost in being like, okay, who is saying this? Who's all in this scene? And that's another thing. There were so many people, and we were introduced to them back to back to back. And I was just getting them all confused because they're all just, you know, pretty much the same. They're all investigating this case. They all had their reasons for it. But since we all got introduced back to back to back, I was really confused by who they were and the names. I was getting confused and everything. So I was really confused. And so once we get to that part of just the courtroom and everything, all of that was going over my head. I was very confused, not knowing what was going on. So this one is a no for me. I have a mood read that I did, and I would recommend this one with a maybe. I'm talking about Beverly Bonnefinche is Dead by Kristen Seeley. This is very genre bending. It can be a romance, it can be a mystery thriller, if you will, but it is a weird girl book. It's an unhinged woman book. So if you like those, then you might want to give this a go. We have our character Beverly, and she starts out so relatable. If you are a woman in your 20s or at any age just trying to find yourself, trying to find your purpose, you're going to be able to relate to Beverly. Beverly is 25. She's living at home still. She has a retail job. She's never had a boyfriend in her life. And when one day this guy comes into the bookshop that she works at, and she's like, oh, he's into me. Maybe I should go about this dating thing. But she's so scared, so insecure. She is afraid that he's going to think she's gross because of some habits that she has. And it's just so relatable of being scared of getting out there. And I'm not even saying getting out there and dating, but just getting your life going. You're finally just pushing the pedal, you know, and getting out there. And that is so scary to do. So I think a lot of people will be able to relate to her. I realized I forgot to put my lipstick today. Random side note. But the story goes on. She does get a little bit more unhinged. So at the start, there were some instances where she'd be judgmental or, you know, think she's better than everybody just because she's different than the normal girl, you know. But she is self-aware. her people in her life will call her out for it if she says something out of line, or even in her head she's like, I know I'm not supposed to think this. So I'm like, okay, you're self-aware. But just as that went on and on, that got tedious to read about, and I didn't like reading that, because I don't want to, like, I don't want to say I don't want to read about negativity. It's just the way that it is written, where it's just so much in your face that it's a lot to take in. The atmosphere didn't play a huge part in the story. It's taking place in Newport, Rhode Island, so you do have a New England setting. Like, there's huge Stephen King influence in this book. Like, not up front where it's horror or anything, but you can just see elements of Stephen King in this book, particularly Carrie. And our character is a fan of Stephen King, and we're taking place in New England. But yeah, Carrie is the main one that this reminds me of. And I've never even seen or read Carrie, but I feel like it's such a classic that, you know, we know what it's about, and I think you're going to see similar themes. And here, the writing style, as I said, it just got tedious with that being inside the character's head. Now, with the plot, there is a lot, there's not a lot of plot. I think this is mainly a character study, but there's so much bad stuff happening. I was so scared it was going to go certain places, and it didn't, thank God, because I was like, we do not need that. We do not need that. Also, another book I would compare this to is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. If you want a more like modern take on that, you know, without all the controversial things that are in that book, this is a more, you know, modern take on the bell jar of a woman who is mentally ill, extremely mentally ill, very unhinged, and seeing how that impacts the people around her, and also that somebody who is mentally ill cannot help that. Now, obviously they can go get help, but they are the way that they are for a reason, and they're not always going to be likable, but that doesn't mean you should just, you know, throw them to the curb. They cannot help that they're like that. Mental health is a sickness, just like a physical sickness, you know. It's still a sickness, and I know that is in some places and in some generations that's a taboo thing, but you have to know that they have to seek treatment and all of that to get better. And we see just the process that mental health can do, and what it can do to a person's life, and what it can take from a person's life, but also what it can give a person. Finally, we have my book club pick of the month, and yes, I would recommend it, and that is Wild Dark Shore by Charlotte McConaghy. Now, the character work was, you know, it kind of so-so. We have our main character of Rowan, who is the woman who washes ashore on the island. Now, we had POVs of like everybody in the story, but you can tell who the two main characters are. It's Rowan, as I said, who washes up on the island, and Dominic, or Dom, who is the father, who is the caretaker of the island. Those are our two main ones. Now, Rowan, I just didn't understand some of that character work. I don't understand why she did some of the things that she did, knowing the situation that she's in. I just didn't think that worked, or that it added up. Dominic, I didn't have any major issue with him, but with those two main characters, I didn't feel a strong connection to. But the side characters, the children, I did really enjoy those characters, and just thought they were all very unique and added a lot to the story. Now, we do have a romance in this book, and I feel like it was so jolted upon and just thrusted at us, like, just to have a romance for the sake of having a romance. Now, I get that it can add stakes and all to the story, but it just wasn't done well. It didn't. Definitely not slow burn, I'll tell you that. I just feel like there needed to be more building with that romance. But the atmosphere was by far my favorite part, and what I love about Charlotte McConaghy's writing. She makes the setting, the island, Shearwater Island, become a character in itself, and it just feels so ancient and beautiful that the story could be taking place like anytime. Like, it's an eternal feeling. I know I use that word a lot to describe things, but I do think that this fits this so well. That nature, it's beautiful, it's powerful, and her nature writing is just so good. Now, with the writing, I can see how short this book is. It took me a while to get through. I did read this on ebook, and I just really struggled getting through the book, because I just wouldn't read as much in a day. I don't know what it is. I do like the writing style, because it's pretty matter of fact, but still lush at the same time, where it tells you what you need to know, but also does a great job at building this world around you. The world building is just chef kiss fantastic. It also lacked consistency, where, as I said, you can tell Rowan's the main character, because her chapters could go on to be 25 pages long, when we would have other characters who would have like half a page for a chapter. And I don't like that lack of consistency. I'm somebody who needs you know, everything to be equal, so I just haven't know what I'm getting myself into, you know. That's my personal preference for writing, and everybody's gonna have something different. So just for me, the writing, that part of the writing wasn't for me. And as for the plot, now it is your typical, you know, it is like a thriller. We have this woman who has a mysterious, they don't know why she's there. She has this mystery around her is what I was trying to say. And also we have the man who, he has kind of a shady past. We don't know, we both know they're lying about something, and they're playing chicken, just waiting to see who is gonna cluck first. See who's going to break first. That is what we're trying to find out here, and that was really good. Especially the end, like the adrenaline, like my adrenaline was pumping reading this book. But when we get to that finale, it's just like, okay, that happened. Like, I didn't really care, you know, even though I felt all this adrenaline building to it. But when it happened, it just felt kind of lackluster to me. I don't know why that is, but I do want to talk about several of the themes here. Grew up and how that shapes you. And in this, we had this climate change world. Survival is a huge theme here, and not just survival in the sense of we're on this island, there are rising sea levels, this island's not going to be here much longer. So the island's trying to survive, all the animals on it are trying to survive, our people are trying to survive, and it's because this is a very brutal, desolate world that they're in. It's cold, it's damp. As I said, the sea levels are rising, they're near Antarctica, so just imagine that you have to survive in that. Like, that's, you're trying to survive. These characters trying to survive the relationships that they're in, and just the dynamics of their family and the people around them, trying to survive that. Seeing all these just survival instincts, and I do love a good survival story, let me tell you. I think Lauren Groff is the one who does it best. Another theme is love and grief. They're so intertwined. I feel like you cannot have grief without having had love, and with loving somebody, grief is going to be inevitable, and it can be in a lot of different ways. Somebody can disappoint you, somebody can die. Yeah, it just, being apart from somebody can cause grief. It's so interconnected, and love can just take over your life and change who you are as a person, and grief can do the same exact thing. Now, I had never thought about this before I read this book, and that is so impactful for me, just to have that conversation in my head with myself and with my book club as well, that they both have such a huge impact. And most people, like, I'm gonna say 99% of people are going to go through those things in their life, and it's so important to talk about, but we never really talk about how love and grief are so interconnected. Those are all of the books that I have completed so far in the month of September. I will do in my vlogs, you know, reviews for the books that weren't featured in this video, and also over on TikTok I do book reviews for every single book that I read as well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it all the way through, leave a leaf emoji in the comments below, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe. Don't forget to ring that notification bell to be notified when all my videos go live. I'll see you in my next one. Bye! If you are familiar with my videos, you're used to seeing Sherman at the end of them. Sadly, Sherman has since passed away, but I would still like to encourage you guys to help your local shelters. Sherman was at the Darlington County Humane Society in rural South Carolina. I always have their link down below in the description if you guys would like to help them, but also help your local shelters as well. You can do that by donating, sharing posts like this one, volunteering, fostering, and adopting, which it's great to do all of those things. Great to help your community, great to help the animals in your community, and I cannot recommend it enough. All of my pets were rescues, they were strays or from animal shelters, and I love them so much, and I know how much love they can give, so knowing these pets at the shelter can equally give that much love, it's amazing. And y'all should totally take part and help out those local animal shelter pets, and please help them.